The war room of the Krell Dominion was filled with the blue glow of holographic displays. Supreme Commander Zarthak stood at the center, his forearms crossed behind his back as he studied the rotating image of a small blue planet. His scaled skin reflected the light as he turned to face his Council of War. "Earth," he said, his voice carrying the weight of authority that had conquered 47 star systems. "The last independent world in this sector. Our scouts have been watching them for 3 cycles now. Tell me what we know." Intelligence Officer Vex stepped forward, her claws clicking against the metal floor. She activated a new display that showed images of human cities, their primitive vehicles, and their peaceful broadcasts into space. "They call themselves humans," Vex began. "They have barely left their homeworld. A few small colonies on nearby planets and moons, nothing significant. Their technology is at least 200 years behind ours. They have no proper military fleet, no weapons capable of threatening our ships. They spend most of their resources on entertainment, art, and what they call social programs." Zarthax's mandibles clicked in what passed for a Krell smile. "No fleet? How do they defend themselves?" "They do not, Commander. They broadcast messages of peace to anyone who will listen. They have formed what they call the United Earth Government, dedicated to cooperation and harmony. Our analysts believe they are either incredibly naive or incredibly stupid. Perhaps both." Another officer, General Cross, activated tactical displays. "Their orbital defenses are minimal. A few outdated satellites with basic weapons. Their ground forces use chemical projectiles. They have nuclear weapons but have not used them in centuries. They actually signed treaties to reduce their numbers. What kind of species limits its own power?" The council chamber filled with the clicking and hissing that served as Krell laughter. Zarthax felt satisfaction flow through him. This would be easy. The Dominion's expansion had slowed recently. They had encountered several species that put up significant resistance, costing time, ships, and resources. But this would be a simple conquest, a demonstration to the other species in the region that resistance was futile. "How many ships will we need?" Zarthax asked. "For complete subjugation? 200 would be excessive, Commander, but I recommend 300. We want to ensure there is no hope of resistance. We will arrive in overwhelming force. They will see our fleet and surrender immediately. We may not need to fire a single shot." Zarthax nodded. "Prepare the fleet. We move in 10 cycles. Send advanced scouts to monitor any changes. And prepare the surrender terms. They will provide resources, labor, and technology. Their system will become another jewel in the Dominion's crown." The council dispersed to carry out their orders. Within days, 300 Krell warships assembled at the edge of their territory. Each ship was a masterpiece of Dominion engineering. They had energy shields that could withstand tremendous punishment. Their weapons could crack planets. Their crews were trained warriors who had never known defeat. The fleet entered faster than light travel, crossing the vast distances between stars in great leaps. Within 3 weeks, they emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system, near the orbit of the outermost planet. Immediately, their sensors swept the system, cataloging everything they found. "Status report," Zarthax commanded from his flagship's bridge. "Detecting minimal activity." "Commander," the sensor officer reported. "Human colonies on the 4th planet Mars. Small settlements on several moons. Asteroid mining operations, but nothing unexpected. No hidden fleets. No weapons platforms. It is exactly as intelligence predicted, and Earth itself, broadcasting on multiple frequencies, news, entertainment, communications between their various nations. They have detected our arrival. Their communications show panic spreading across their world." Zarthax watched the displays with satisfaction. "Open a channel to Earth, all frequencies. I want every human to hear this." The communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open, Commander." Zarthax stood tall, his image being broadcast to Earth. "Humans of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Zarthax of the Krell Dominion. You see our fleet at the edge of your system. 300 warships, each capable of destroying your entire civilization. You have no military that can oppose us. You have no defenses that can stop us. You have one choice and one choice only: surrender." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 24 Earth hours to respond. Your government will submit to Dominion rule. You will provide resources and labor as we direct. You will abandon your colonies and consolidate on your home world. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your species. This is not negotiation. This is fact. You have 24 hours. The channel closed." Zarthax turned to his officers.
"Begin advancing into the system."
"Slow approach. I want them to watch us come." I want their fear to grow with every passing hour. By the time we reach Earth orbit, they will be begging to surrender. The Krell fleet moved forward like a great predator stalking prey. Their ship stayed in tight formation, a display of military precision meant to intimidate. They passed the outer planets, their sensors constantly scanning for any sign of resistance. On Earth, the response was exactly what Zarthax expected. He intercepted their communications. Their news broadcasts showed people in panic. Their governments convened emergency sessions. Their military forces went on alert, though their primitive weapons would be useless. Some humans called for surrender immediately. Others demanded they fight, though they had nothing to fight with. It was chaos. But as the hours passed, something strange began to happen. The human transmissions started to decrease. Their cities, which had blazed with light and activity, began going dark. Their communication satellites went silent one by one. Even their internet, the global communication network they depended on, started shutting down in sections. "What are they doing?" Zarthax demanded. "Unknown, Commander." The sensor officer replied, confusion in her voice. "It appears they are voluntarily shutting down their infrastructure, perhaps preparing for our arrival, or maybe their government is consolidating control." General Cross studied his tactical display. "It could be a strategy to deny us resources. If they destroy their own technology before we arrive, we gain less from the conquest." Zarthax considered this. "Fools, do they not realize we can simply rebuild? We will force them to work until their world is productive again. Continue the approach." The 24-hour deadline passed with no formal response from Earth, only silence. The human governments had not contacted the Krell. They had not surrendered, but they also had not mobilized any defense. They simply went quiet. "They are paralyzed with fear," Vex suggested. "They cannot decide whether to fight or surrender, so they do nothing." The fleet crossed the orbit of Mars. The small human colonies there had also gone dark. No transmissions. No activity. Just empty buildings and silent machines. It was as if the humans had simply given up on everything. "This is almost disappointing," General Cross muttered. "I expected at least token resistance. Some brave fools trying to stop us with their primitive weapons. This is just sad." But one of the younger officers, a tactical analyst named Reth, studied his displays with growing unease. "Commander, permission to speak?" "Granted. Something feels wrong, sir. We have conquered many species. They either fight immediately or open negotiations. But going completely silent? Shutting down everything? What purpose does this serve?" Zarthax turned to face the young officer. "You think it is a trap?" "I think we should be cautious, Commander. We know very little about these humans beyond surface observations. Why would a species broadcast peace for decades and then go silent when actually confronted?" Vex clicked her mandibles dismissively. "Because they are terrified. Because they have realized their peaceful philosophy is worthless against real power. There is no trap here, just acceptance of inevitable defeat." Zarthax considered both viewpoints. His instincts, honed through decades of warfare, told him to be careful. But the evidence was overwhelming. The humans had nothing. Their colonies were empty. Their homeworld was going dark. There were no hidden fleets, no secret weapons. His sensors would have detected them. "We proceed as planned," he decided. "But battle stations, shields at maximum, weapons ready. If the humans try anything foolish, we will end it instantly." The fleet continued its advance. They passed the orbit of Mars, then the asteroid belt. Zarthax noted the mining operations there now abandoned. The humans had been extracting resources from the asteroids, but on a small scale. Nothing that suggested military production. Then they reached the orbit of Earth's moon. The large satellite hung in space, its surface covered in ancient craters. The humans had visited it decades ago, planted flags, and then largely abandoned it except for a few small research stations. Those stations were now as dark as everything else. Earth itself loomed before them, a beautiful blue and white sphere. Zarthax could see the continents, the oceans, the clouds, and the darkness. The night side of the planet showed almost no lights. The cities that should have blazed were dim. The day side showed no air traffic, no activity. It was as if the entire planet was holding its breath. "Move into orbit," Zarthax commanded. "Maintain formation. Full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about this planet before we proceed." The 300 Krell warships moved into positions around Earth. They formed a perfect blockade, ensuring nothing could leave or enter without their permission. Their sensors probed every inch of the planet below, cataloging resources, populations, and infrastructure. "Commander," the sensor officer reported, "we are detecting some unusual readings." "Explain." "There are heat signatures in unexpected locations, underground facilities that our initial surveys missed, and some of the asteroid mining operations we passed, they are showing residual energy readings higher than they should be for simple mining." Zarthax felt a flicker of unease. "Could they be weapons facilities?" "Unlikely, sir. The scale is all wrong, and if they were weapons, why not use them? We are here. We are vulnerable during orbital insertion. If they had weapons, now would be the time to strike." That was logical. Zarthax relaxed slightly. "Perhaps research facilities, or bunkers where their leaders are hiding. It does not matter. We control the orbital space. They cannot escape. Prepare to broadcast another message. I will give them one final chance to surrender before we begin orbital bombardment of military targets." But before he could give the order, alarms began sounding across the bridge. Every sensor, every tactical display, every warning system activated at once. The sound was deafening. "Report!" Zarthax roared over the noise. The sensor officer's scales had paled to almost white. She stared at her displays in disbelief. "Commander, we have multiple contacts. Massive energy signatures emerging from everywhere." "What do you mean everywhere?" "The moon, sir." "The dark side of the moon. It is opening." On the main display, Zarthax watched in shock as enormous sections of the moon's surface split apart. These were not natural formations. They were doors. Massive hangar doors carved into the lunar surface and hidden for who knew how long. And from those doors, ships began to emerge. Not human ships as Zarthax understood them. These were warships. Massive, sleek, dangerous. They poured out of the moon like insects from a disturbed nest. Dozens, hundreds. They kept coming. "Contacts from Mars," another officer shouted. Those colonies were not abandoned. "They are shipyards." "Repeat, Mars is launching warships." "Asteroid belt," a third officer added. "Those mining operations, they are not mines. They are weapons platforms and shipyards. They are activating Jupiter's moons. Europa Ganymede Callisto, all showing massive energy signatures. They are launching ships." Zarthax could not process what he was seeing. The displays showed the solar system lighting up like a festival. Every location the humans occupied, every seemingly innocent colony and research station, was revealed as a military installation. And they were all launching ships. Within minutes, the tactical display showed the impossible. Surrounding the Krell fleet were not the helpless humans they expected. Surrounding them were 2,000 human warships. 2,000. Zarthax's 300 ships were outnumbered nearly 7-1, and these were not primitive vessels. Even from the sensor readings, he could tell these ships were advanced. Very advanced. How had they hidden this? How had intelligence missed this? Then a new transmission reached the Krell fleet. But this time it was not a message of peace or a plea for mercy. This time it was a human broadcasting to them. The image showed a human female in a military uniform. Her face was calm, almost friendly, but her eyes were cold. Behind her, on displays, Zarthax could see the interior of a warship bridge buzzing with activity. "Supreme Commander Zarthax," the human said. "My name is Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. I believe you came here expecting to find a helpless planet. I believe you expected us to surrender or be destroyed. I have a message for you and for the Krell Dominion." She leaned forward slightly and her friendly expression vanished, replaced with something that made Zarthax's blood run cold. "You were deceived. Everything you thought you knew about humanity was a lie we carefully constructed. We have been watching your dominion for 200 years. We have been preparing for this moment for 200 years. You are not the hunters. You are the prey. And now you will learn what happens when you threaten Earth." The transmission ended. For a moment, there was absolute silence on the Krell flagship bridge. 300 ships against 2,000. The hunters had become the hunted. And Zarthax realized with dawning horror that his fleet was already in a trap. The helpless humans had teeth after all, and they were about to use them. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDFS Indomitable, humanity's flagship. Around her, officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment for decades. Some of them had been born into families that had been preparing for this day since before their grandparents were alive. "Status of all fleet elements?" Chen asked, her voice steady. Commander Rodriguez, her tactical officer, checked his displays. All ships are in position, Admiral. Luna Fleet has fully deployed 1,200 warships. Mars Fleet is moving into attack formation, 400 ships. Jupiter Fleet is advancing from the outer system, 300 ships. Asteroid Defense Network is online, 100 mobile platforms. All ships report ready for combat. Chen nodded. 2,000 ships. It had taken humanity 2 centuries to build this fleet in complete secrecy. 2 centuries of lies, misdirection, and careful planning. Every space mission that seemed peaceful had a hidden purpose. Every colony that looked small and innocent was actually a military base in disguise. Every asteroid mining operation was really a shipyard building warships in the dark. Communications, show me the Krell formation, Chen ordered. The main display shifted to show the 300 Krell warships in orbit around Earth. They had moved into what they thought was a dominant position. They surrounded the planet, believing they controlled the battlefield. They had no idea they were sitting in the middle of a carefully designed kill zone. Chen had studied the Krell for years. She had read every report, watched every battle recording that intelligence had gathered. The Krell were powerful, yes. They had conquered dozens of species. But they had a weakness. They were arrogant. They believed their own propaganda about being the greatest military force in the galaxy. That arrogance had brought them here, and that arrogance would destroy them. Time since our broadcast? Chen asked. 3 minutes, Admiral. They are still in shock, Rodriguez observed. Their formation has not changed. They are not raising shields or powering weapons. They cannot believe what they are seeing. Chen allowed herself a small smile. She remembered the day, 20 years ago, when she had been briefed on humanity's true military capability. She had been a young captain then, selected for the secret defense program. She remembered walking into the lunar base through those massive hidden doors. She remembered seeing the vast hangars carved into the moon, filled with warships that officially did not exist. She remembered the moment she realized everything she thought she knew about Earth's defenses was a carefully maintained lie. The United Earth government had made a decision 200 years ago, after first contact with alien species. They had learned that the galaxy was not a friendly place. Species conquered each other. The strong dominated the weak. And humanity, newly emerged into this galactic community, looked very weak. But instead of panicking, instead of rushing to build defenses everyone could see, they had made a different choice. They would appear weak. They would broadcast messages of peace. They would seem naive and helpless. And while the galaxy watched their peaceful facade, humanity would build the most powerful military fleet in secret, preparing for the day when someone decided to test Earth's apparent weakness. That day had come. Admiral, the Krell are moving, Rodriguez reported. Their formation is tightening. They are raising shields and powering weapons. Good, Chen said. They are recovering from their shock. Let them prepare. I want them to understand what is about to happen to them. On the display, Chen watched the Krell ships cluster together. They were forming a defensive sphere, the standard response when outnumbered. Shields overlapping, weapons pointing outward in all directions. It was a solid formation, one that would normally allow them to hold out until reinforcements arrived. But there would be no reinforcements, and humanity had weapons the Krell had never encountered. Status on Project Mjolnir? Chen asked. Lieutenant Park, the weapons officer, consulted his board. All magnetic accelerator cannons are charged and ready. Targeting solutions locked. We can fire on your command, Admiral. Chen looked at the Krell formation again. She felt no satisfaction, no joy in what was about to happen. She felt only the cold necessity of survival. The Krell had come to conquer Earth. They had come to enslave humanity. They had given Earth no choice but surrender or death. Now they would learn that humanity offered the same terms. Open a channel to the Krell flagship, Chen ordered. A moment later, the face of the Krell commander appeared on her screen. He looked different now from the arrogant conqueror who had broadcast his demands earlier. His scales were darker, a sign of stress in his species. His forearms gestured in agitation. Human, he said, his voice rough through the translation software. You have deceived us. This is dishonorable. You broadcast peace but prepared for war. Chen leaned forward, looking directly into the camera. Commander Zarthax, let me tell you a story. 200 years ago, humanity detected alien signals. We learned we were not alone in the universe. We were excited. We were hopeful. And then we translated those signals. We learned what the galaxy really is. We learned about the Krell Dominion and the 47 species you have conquered. We learned about other empires built on slavery and domination. We learned that the galaxy is full of predators. She paused, letting her words sink in. So we made a choice. We would not advertise our strength. We would not make ourselves targets. We would appear weak and helpless while we built the strength to defend ourselves. Not to conquer others, Commander, only to defend our home. You could have joined the Dominion peacefully, Zarthax argued. You could have benefited from our protection, our technology. Your protection? Chen's voice turned cold. Your species? You came here to enslave us. You gave us 24 hours to surrender or die. You speak of honor while threatening genocide. No, Commander. We will never join your Dominion, and your fleet will never leave this system. Zarthax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of anger. You cannot defeat the Dominion. Even if you destroy this fleet, more will come. We have thousands of ships. Then send them, Chen said quietly. Send every ship you have. Send your entire military. Come to Earth and try to take us. But know this. Every ship you send will be destroyed. Every warrior you send will die. We have prepared for 200 years for this war. We have weapons you cannot imagine. We have strategies you cannot predict. And we have something you do not have. What is that? We are defending our home, our families, our children, our world. You are fighting for expansion and glory. We are fighting for survival. That makes all the difference. She cut the transmission before he could respond. All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage. Rules of engagement are as follows. Any Krell ship that powers down weapons and shields will be allowed to surrender and will be taken prisoner. Any ship that attempts to flee will be pursued and destroyed. Any ship that returns fire will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is extermination. The bridge crew acknowledged the orders. Chen could see the determination on their faces. These were professionals. They understood what was about to happen. There would be no glory in this battle. Only necessity. Admiral, Rodriguez said, Krell fleet is broadcasting a retreat order. They are attempting to break orbit and escape the system. Denied, Chen said flatly. All fleet elements execute Operation Hammerfall. Target their engines first. I want them trapped here. The battle began with silence. In space, there was no sound. But on Chen's tactical display, the battle was violent and immediate. The 2,000 human warships opened fire simultaneously. The weapons humanity had developed were unlike anything the Krell had faced before. Magnetic accelerator cannons, railguns that used electromagnetic force to propel solid projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The Krell energy shields, designed to deflect laser and plasma weapons, were useless against solid matter moving at such incredible velocity. The first volley struck the Krell formation like the hammer of an angry god. Dozens of Krell ships were hit simultaneously. Their shields flickered and failed. The projectiles punched through armor like paper. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were suddenly torn apart, their engines destroyed, their hulls breached, atmosphere venting into space. Direct hits on 63 targets, Rodriguez reported, his voice steady. All targets disabled. Continuing firing sequence. The human fleet fired again, and again. The Krell tried to return fire, their energy weapons lashing out at the human ships. But the human fleet was spread out, mobile, using the entire volume of space around Earth as their battlefield. The Krell shots hit human shields and were absorbed or deflected. A few human ships took damage, but nothing critical. Meanwhile, the Krell formation was falling apart. They tried to break free to escape, but human ships blocked every route. They tried to form defensive positions, but human weapons fired from angles they could not defend. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and completely unprepared for this type of combat. Chen watched the battle unfold with clinical detachment. She felt no pleasure in the destruction. She felt no satisfaction in the Krell deaths. She felt only the cold certainty that this was necessary. The Krell had come to destroy humanity. Now humanity was defending itself with all the force it could bring to bear. Admiral, Krell flagship is attempting to surrender. Communications reported. Chen looked at the display. The Krell flagship was badly damaged. Multiple hull breaches, engines offline. It was drifting, defenseless. Cease fire on the flagship, Chen ordered. Inform Commander Zarthax that his surrender is accepted. His crew will be taken prisoner. Medical teams will assist with casualties. The human fleet shifted its fire away from the flagship. Around it, the battle continued. More Krell ships were destroyed or disabled every minute. Some tried to surrender. Those were spared, their crews taken prisoner. Others fought to the end and were destroyed. A few tried to flee, activating their faster-than-light drives to escape the system. Those were pursued by human ships and destroyed before they could reach safe jump distance. The Battle of Earth lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 273 Krell ships were destroyed. 27 had surrendered. Not a single Krell ship escaped. The human fleet had suffered damage to 42 vessels, with 12 requiring significant repairs. But no human ships were destroyed and casualties were minimal. Chen stood on her bridge as the guns fell silent. Around Earth, the wreckage of the Krell fleet drifted in orbit, a graveyard of metal and bodies. It was a horrific sight. Thousands of Krell warriors were dead. Their mighty fleet was broken, but Chen felt no regret. They had come to conquer Earth. They had threatened to exterminate humanity. They had given humans no choice. This was the result of their arrogance and their cruelty. Status of prisoners? Chen asked. Approximately 40,000 Krell survivors in the surrendered ships, Rodriguez reported. We are bringing them aboard prison transports. Medical teams are treating casualties. Good. Treat them according to the rules of war. They are prisoners, not animals. Chen took a deep breath. The battle was won. But the war was just beginning. The Krell Dominion would learn what happened to their fleet. They would respond. Humanity needed to be ready. Communications, prepare a message for broadcast, Chen ordered. I want this sent to every Krell world, every Dominion facility, and every species in the galaxy who is listening. I want everyone to know what happened here today. The communications officer worked quickly. Ready to broadcast, Admiral. Chen thought carefully about her words. This message would define how the galaxy saw humanity for generations to come. It needed to be clear. It needed to be strong. And it needed to leave no doubt about humanity's resolve. To the Krell Dominion and all who hear this message, Chen began, her voice calm and clear. Today the Krell sent 300 warships to conquer Earth. They believed we were weak. They believed we were helpless. They believed we would surrender without a fight. They were wrong. She paused, letting the words carry their weight. The Krell fleet has been destroyed. Of 300 ships, not one escaped. Their warriors are dead or captured. Their weapons are silent. They came to exterminate us, and instead they have been exterminated. Let this be a lesson to any species who thinks humanity is weak. We are not. We have been preparing for this day for 2 centuries. We have built fleets you cannot imagine. We have weapons you cannot defend against, and we have the will to use them to protect our home. Chen's expression hardened. The Krell Dominion has a choice now. You can accept your defeat and leave humanity alone, or you can send more fleets, send more warriors. Try to avenge your loss. But know this, every ship you send will meet the same fate. We will not stop. We will not surrender. And we will show no mercy to those who threaten our existence. She ended the broadcast. Around her bridge, the crew was silent. They all understood what Chen had just done. She had declared war not just on the Krell, but on anyone in the galaxy who might threaten Earth. It was a bold statement, a dangerous statement. But it was necessary. Admiral, Rodriguez said quietly, the Dominion will respond to this. They cannot ignore such a defeat. I know, Chen replied. That is what I am counting on. Let them come. Let them send their fleets. We will show them that Earth is not to be trifled with. We will show the galaxy that humanity has arrived, and we will not be conquered. She looked out at the stars, at the infinite darkness beyond Earth. Somewhere out there, the Krell Dominion was receiving her message. They would be angry. They would be humiliated. And they would want revenge. But Chen was ready. Humanity was ready. The trap had been sprung. The deception was revealed. And now the real war would begin. The Krell Dominion Central Command was a place of order and discipline. For 300 years it had coordinated the conquest of dozens of worlds. The High Council chamber was where the greatest military minds of the Krell Empire made decisions that shaped the fate of entire species. Today that chamber was filled with chaos. Supreme Archon Vectress slammed 2 of his 4 fists onto the table. The holographic display before him showed the aftermath of the Battle of Earth. Wreckage, death, humiliation. How is this possible? He roared at the assembled generals and admirals. 300 warships, our finest fleet, destroyed by a primitive species that should not even have spaceflight. Fleet Admiral Drexus, the most senior military officer in the Dominion, stood to address the council. His scales were pale with stress, but his voice remained steady. Supreme Archon, we were deceived. Our intelligence failed completely. The humans are not primitive. They have been hiding their true military capability for 2 centuries. They have technology equal or superior to ours in key areas. 2 centuries? Vectress turned to the head of intelligence, Director Kresh. You told us Earth was helpless. You showed us reports of their peaceful nature, their lack of weapons, their weak defenses. Were all your reports lies? Kresh's mandibles trembled. She knew her life depended on her next words. The humans engaged in the most elaborate deception in galactic history. Supreme Archon. They maintained their peaceful facade perfectly. They hid their shipyards inside asteroids and moons. They built their weapons in complete secrecy. Our scouts saw exactly what the humans wanted them to see. We were fooled. The entire galaxy was fooled. Then we must respond, another council member declared. We cannot allow this insult to stand. If we do nothing, every species we have conquered will see us as weak. Rebellion will spread. The Dominion will collapse, Vectress nodded slowly. The council member was right. The Dominion's power was built on fear and reputation. If they did not respond to this defeat with overwhelming force, their entire empire would be at risk. How many ships can we assemble? Vectress asked Drexus. The entire fleet? Approximately 8,000 warships, Supreme Archon, but gathering them all would take time and would leave our conquered territories vulnerable. I do not care about conquered territories, Vectress snarled. The humans must be crushed completely, utterly. We will send such a force to Earth that they will have no hope of survival. We will turn their planet into ash. We will make them an example that will terrify the galaxy for 1,000 years. Drexus nodded. I will begin assembly immediately. With your permission, I will lead the fleet personally. No, Vectress said. I will lead this fleet. This is not just a military matter. This is about the survival of the Dominion itself. The humans will see the full might of the Krell Empire. They will see what happens when they dare to defy us. The council voted unanimously to approve the mobilization. Within days, orders went out across Dominion space. Every available warship was to converge on the gathering point. Every warrior was called to service. The Dominion was preparing for total war, but while the Krell gathered their forces, humanity was not idle. Admiral Chen stood in the Strategic Command Center deep beneath the lunar surface. Around her, holographic displays showed the entire galaxy, tracking ship movements, analyzing signals, monitoring enemy communications. Intelligence confirms the Krell are mobilizing everything, Commander Rodriguez reported. We estimate they will assemble between 7,000 and 8,000 warships. They are stripping defenses from their conquered territories to build this fleet. How long until they can move? Chen asked. 6 to 8 weeks. They need to gather ships from across their empire, resupply, and coordinate such a massive force. Chen smiled grimly. Then we have 6 to 8 weeks to prepare. And to strike first. Rodriguez looked surprised. Strike first, Admiral? They outnumber us 4 to 1. We barely defeated 300 ships. How can we face 8,000? We cannot, Chen admitted. Not in a direct battle. But we are not going to fight them in a direct battle. We are going to use their own weaknesses against them. She activated a new display showing Krell territory. The Krell Empire is built on conquest. They have 47 conquered species providing them with resources, labor, and support. But those species hate the Krell. They only submit because they fear Krell military power. So what happens if we demonstrate that the Krell military can be beaten? What happens if we give those species hope? Rodriguez's eyes widened as he understood. We destabilize the empire from within. Exactly, Chen confirmed. We cannot destroy 8,000 ships, but we can make it impossible for the Krell to field 8,000 ships. We are going to hit their supply lines, liberate their conquered worlds, and turn their empire into a war on multiple fronts. By the time they gather their fleet, they will have bigger problems than Earth. That is a massive undertaking. Admiral. Yes, which is why we are not doing it alone. Chen opened another communication channel. The display showed a variety of alien faces. Some were humanoid, others were vastly different, but all of them shared one thing. They were representatives of species conquered by the Krell. Delegates, Chen addressed them. You have all seen what happened at Earth. You have seen the mighty Krell fleet destroyed. You have seen that the Krell can be beaten. Today I am offering you something you have not had in decades or even centuries. I am offering you freedom. One of the delegates, a creature that looked like a cross between an insect and a bird, spoke up. The Krell will retaliate against us if we rebel. They will destroy our worlds. Not if we move together, Chen replied. Not if we coordinate. The Krell are gathering their fleet for an attack on Earth. That means their defenses elsewhere are weakened. If multiple worlds rebel simultaneously, the Krell cannot respond to all of them. They will have to choose, and every choice they make weakens them further. Another delegate, a being made of what appeared to be living crystal, asked, What guarantee do we have that you will help us? That you will not abandon us once the Krell are defeated? I offer you no guarantees, Chen said honestly. I can only tell you that humanity fights for freedom. Our freedom and yours. We have weapons we can provide. We have tactics we can teach. And we have the will to see this through. But ultimately you must choose. Remain slaves to the Krell or fight for your liberty. The delegates conferred among themselves. Chen waited patiently. She knew this was a risk. Some of these species might report to the Krell, but she was counting on the fact that 2 centuries of Krell oppression had bred enough resentment that most would choose freedom over slavery. Finally, the insect bird delegate spoke again. We will join you. My people remember freedom. We will fight to reclaim it. One by one, the other delegates agreed. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to cause serious problems for the Krell Empire. Over the following weeks, humanity executed its plan with precision. Small human task forces, never more than 50 ships, began hitting Krell supply lines. They attacked convoys carrying resources to the fleet assembly point. They destroyed shipyards and repair facilities. They struck fast and disappeared before Krell reinforcements could arrive. At the same time, rebellions began erupting across Krell territory. On the planet Sethis, the local population rose up and seized the Krell garrison. On the mining colonies of the Vrak system, workers sabotaged equipment and destroyed stockpiles meant for the Krell fleet. On a dozen worlds, centuries of resentment exploded into open warfare. The Krell tried to respond, but they faced an impossible situation. Every ship they sent to suppress a rebellion was a ship they could not send to Earth. Every resource they used to maintain control was a resource they could not use to supply their fleet. Their empire, which had seemed so strong, was revealed to be fragile and dependent on fear. Admiral Chen watched the reports come in from across Krell space. The plan was working better than she had hoped. The Krell were overextended, trying to hold together an empire that was falling apart. Their fleet assembly was delayed as they diverted resources to put down rebellions. Their shipyards were sabotaged or destroyed. Their supply lines were in chaos, but Chen knew this was only the beginning. Eventually, the Krell would stabilize their empire or abandon it entirely to focus on Earth. When that happened, humanity needed to be ready for the next phase. Status on Project Prometheus? Chen asked. Lieutenant Park consulted his displays. All facilities are operational, Admiral. We are producing antimatter weapons at maximum capacity. Current stockpiles are sufficient to arm the entire fleet. Antimatter weapons, the most destructive force humanity had ever created. When matter and antimatter touched, they annihilated each other in a release of pure energy. A single antimatter torpedo could destroy a ship. A barrage of them could wipe out an entire fleet. Humanity had been developing antimatter technology in secret for decades. It was dangerous, difficult to produce, and even harder to store. But it was also the ultimate weapon. The Krell had no defense against it. Their shields could not stop it. Their armor could not withstand it. Good, Chen said. Distribute the weapons to all ships. Make sure every captain understands the protocols. Antimatter is not to be used unless absolutely necessary. But if the Krell do manage to assemble their fleet and attack Earth, we need to be ready to end the battle quickly and decisively. As the weeks passed, the situation in Krell space deteriorated further. The rebellion spread. More species joined the uprising. Human task forces continued their raids, growing bolder with each success. The Krell Empire was collapsing, and the Krell High Council knew it. Supreme Archon Vectress watched his empire burn, The holographic displays showed rebellion on 30 worlds. His fleets were scattered, trying to maintain control. His planned assault on Earth was delayed again and again, as resources were diverted to suppress uprisings. "We are losing," Fleet Admiral Drexus said quietly. "The humans have outmaneuvered us." "They are not fighting us ship to ship. They are destroying the foundation of our empire." "Then we will make them pay," Vectress snarled. "Forget the rebellions. Let the conquered worlds burn. Gather what ships we have and attack Earth now. We will destroy the humans and their planet. Once Earth is ash, the rebellions will lose their symbol of hope. They will realize resistance is futile." "We have only 4,000 ships ready," Drexus warned. "The rest are spread across the Empire or still under repair. 4,000 is enough. The humans have only 2,000. We still outnumber them, and this time we will not be surprised. This time we know what we face. Send the order." The fleet moves immediately. The Krell fleet assembled and began its journey to Earth. 4,000 warships, the largest fleet the Dominion had ever sent into battle. They traveled quickly, pushing their faster-than-light drives to maximum speed. Vectress wanted to end this war before his empire completely fell apart. But humanity's intelligence network was extensive. Before the Krell fleet was halfway to Earth, Chen knew they were coming. She knew their numbers, their composition, and their approach vector. 4,000 ships, Rodriguez said, studying the tactical display. "Even with antimatter weapons, this will be a difficult fight." "Then we make sure it is not a fair fight," Chen replied. "Activate Operation Ragnarok. All fleet elements to execute as planned." Operation Ragnarok was humanity's contingency plan for facing a numerically superior force. Instead of meeting the Krell in orbit around Earth, humanity would fight them in deep space far from any planet. And they would choose the battlefield carefully. The Krell fleet entered the solar system expecting to find Earth's defenses waiting for them in orbit. Instead, they found nothing. No ships, no defenses. Earth seemed abandoned. "Where are they?" Vectress demanded. "Unknown, Supreme Archon," the sensor officer replied. "We are detecting no human ships in the system. They may have fled." Vectress did not believe that for a moment. "Scan everything. They are here somewhere. They are hiding, waiting to ambush us." The Krell fleet advanced cautiously into the system. They passed the outer planets, their sensors sweeping constantly. They reached Jupiter's orbit and still found nothing. Then as they passed the asteroid belt, the trap was sprung. The asteroids themselves opened fire. What the Krell thought were natural space rocks were actually weapons platforms. Thousands of them. They had been positioned carefully over months, scattered throughout the asteroid belt in a formation that would allow them to hit the Krell fleet from multiple angles simultaneously. The first volley caught the Krell completely by surprise. Railgun projectiles and missiles poured out of the asteroid belt. The Krell shields absorbed some of the damage, but the sheer volume of fire was overwhelming. Ships at the front of the formation were hit dozens of times, their shields collapsing, their hulls breached. "Return fire," Vectress commanded. "Destroy those platforms." The Krell fleet opened fire on the asteroids, but targeting was difficult. The platforms were small, mobile, and scattered among countless real asteroids. For every platform the Krell destroyed, 10 more remained operational. And then the human fleet arrived. They came from the outer system, having hidden in the shadow of Jupiter. 2,000 human warships accelerated toward the Krell at maximum speed. They were not arranged in a traditional formation. Instead, they moved in small groups, each attacking a different part of the Krell fleet, preventing the enemy from concentrating their fire. The Battle of the Asteroid Belt was chaos. The Krell had numbers, but the humans had position and surprise. The asteroid platforms provided continuous fire support, forcing the Krell to divide their attention. Human ships struck fast and hard, then retreated before the Krell could respond effectively. And then humanity revealed its final surprise, the antimatter weapons. The first antimatter torpedo struck a Krell battleship. The explosion was blinding. Matter and antimatter met and annihilated each other in a release of pure energy. The battleship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. The ships near it were damaged by the explosion, their shields overloaded, their systems disrupted. More torpedoes followed. Each one was a miniature sun, a burst of destruction that nothing could withstand. Krell ships died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The fleet that had entered the system confident of victory was being torn apart. Vectress watched his fleet being destroyed and finally understood. The humans were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for survival. And they would use every weapon, every tactic, every advantage to ensure that survival. This was not a battle. This was an extermination. "Retreat!" he finally ordered. "All ships full retreat. Activate FTL drives and get us out of this system." But humanity had prepared for that too. Human ships had positioned themselves to block the retreat routes. Any Krell ship that tried to activate its FTL drive found itself under immediate attack, forcing it to divert power to shields instead of engines. The Krell fleet was trapped. They could not advance. They could not retreat. They could only die. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it was over, 3,800 Krell ships were destroyed. Only 200 managed to escape, fleeing in disorder back toward Krell space. The human fleet had suffered significant damage, with over 500 ships requiring repairs, but only 30 were destroyed. Admiral Chen stood on her bridge as the last Krell ship jumped to FTL, running for their lives. Around her, the crew was exhausted but triumphant. They had faced a fleet twice their size and crushed it. "Send a message to all human forces," Chen ordered. "The second battle of Earth is won. The Krell fleet is destroyed. Earth is safe." As the message spread across human space, celebrations erupted, but Chen did not celebrate. She looked at the tactical display, at the hundreds of Krell wrecks floating in the asteroid belt. She thought about the thousands of Krell warriors who had died today. War was hell, but it was necessary. The Krell had given humanity no choice, and now the Krell would pay the price for their arrogance. The war was not over, but humanity had shown the galaxy that Earth would not be conquered. Not now, not ever. The remnants of the Krell fleet limped back to their home system in disorder. Of the 4,000 ships that had left to conquer Earth, only 200 returned. They carried with them tales of horror, of human weapons that could destroy ships in single hits, of asteroids that opened fire, of a defense so overwhelming that the mighty Krell Dominion had been crushed. Supreme Archon Vectress survived the battle, but his authority did not. When his damaged flagship entered orbit around Krell Prime, the homeworld of the Krell species, he was arrested by his own High Council. They blamed him for the disaster. They blamed him for losing most of the Dominion's fleet. They blamed him for the rebellions spreading across their empire. The new Supreme Archon was Draxon, a younger member of the Council who had opposed the attack on Earth from the beginning. He took power in a time of crisis. The Dominion was falling apart. 30 conquered worlds were in open rebellion. Supply lines were disrupted. The military was shattered. And worst of all, the humans had sent a message. That message played on every screen in the Krell High Council chamber. Admiral Chen's face looked out at them with cold determination. "People of the Krell Dominion," she began, "you have now lost 2 fleets to humanity. Over 4,000 ships. Hundreds of thousands of your warriors. All because your leaders chose to attack Earth. All because they believed we were weak." She paused, and the council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But we have no interest in prolonging this war," Chen continued. "We do not want to conquer your worlds. We do not want to rule your empire. We want only one thing, peace. But not peace through submission. Peace through respect. Therefore, I offer the Krell Dominion a choice. You can accept our terms and end this war, or you can continue fighting and watch your empire collapse around you. The choice is yours, but you must choose now." The message ended. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some called for continued war. Others demanded immediate surrender. The Krell Empire, which had ruled through strength and fear for 3 centuries, was tearing itself apart. Supreme Archon Draxon raised his hands for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. "We must face the truth. We cannot defeat the humans militarily. They have destroyed 6,000 of our ships with minimal losses. They have superior weapons and tactics. And while we have been focused on Earth, our empire has been crumbling." "Then you propose surrender?" one general asked with disgust. "I propose survival," Draxon replied. "Look at the strategic situation. We have perhaps 2,000 functional warships remaining. The humans have approximately 1,800. We are nearly equal in numbers now, but they can produce new ships faster than we can. Meanwhile, we face rebellions on 30 worlds. We cannot fight on all fronts." Fleet Admiral Drexus, who had also survived the battle, nodded in agreement. "The Supreme Archon is correct. Military victory is impossible. We must negotiate." But before the council could vote on surrender, new alarms sounded. A communications officer rushed into the chamber. Supreme Archon, we have a priority alert. Multiple human ships have been detected in our territory. What, where? Draxon demanded. Everywhere, sir. Small human task forces are hitting our remaining military installations. They have destroyed our shipyard at Vex Prime. They have attacked our supply depot at Krell Station 7. They are systematically eliminating our ability to rebuild our fleet. The council members stared in shock. The humans were not waiting for the Krell to make a decision. They were already prosecuting the war. Draxon felt ice in his blood. How many human ships? Reports are unclear, but at least 300 spread across our territory in groups of 20 to 30 ships each. 300. Draxon did the calculation. The humans still had 1,500 ships defending Earth. They were so confident in their defenses that they could send 300 ships deep into enemy territory. It was a demonstration of overwhelming strength. We must respond, a council member shouted. Send our fleet to drive them out. And leave Krell Prime undefended? Drexus asked. What if the humans attack our homeworld while our fleet is scattered chasing their raiding parties? Draxon understood the trap. No matter what the Krell did, they would be at a disadvantage. If they concentrated their fleet, the humans could raid with impunity. If they scattered their fleet, the humans could defeat them piecemeal. The Krell had already lost this war. Now they were just deciding how much more they would lose before accepting it. Contact the humans, Draxon ordered. Tell them we wish to discuss their terms. But the humans had other plans. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it traveled through faster-than-light space. Around her ship was a fleet of 500 human warships. They were not raiding parties. They were not skirmishers. This was an invasion force, and they were heading directly for Krell Prime. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Krell government. Communications reported. They want to negotiate. Tell them we will negotiate at Krell Prime, Chen replied. In person. Commander Rodriguez looked concerned. Admiral, taking the fleet to their homeworld is risky. Even with our advantages, if they have significant defenses there, we could take heavy casualties. They do not have significant defenses, Chen said confidently. Our intelligence reports that most of their remaining fleet is scattered across their territory, trying to deal with the rebellions and our raiding parties. Krell Prime itself has perhaps 200 ships defending it. We have 500. And more importantly, we need to send a message not just to the Krell but to the entire galaxy. What message is that? That humanity is not just defensive, that we can project power anywhere in the galaxy, that we can reach into the heart of our enemy's territory and dictate terms. The Krell ruled through fear. Now we will show them what real power looks like. The human fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the Krell home system. Immediately, their sensors swept the system, cataloging defenses. As intelligence had predicted, the Krell had approximately 200 ships in orbit around their home world, plus a handful of defense stations. The Krell fleet moved into defensive positions, but they did not fire. They were waiting for orders. On their command ship, Supreme Archon Draxon watched the human fleet arrive with a sinking feeling. 500 human warships in his home system, within striking distance of Krell Prime. If they attacked, his defenses would be overwhelmed in hours. His entire species could be exterminated. Receiving a transmission from the human flagship, his communications officer reported. Put it through, Draxon ordered. Admiral Chen appeared on his screen. She was in full military uniform, standing on a bridge that hummed with controlled activity. Behind her, Draxon could see displays showing tactical information, including his own defenses. The humans knew exactly what forces he had. Supreme Archon Draxon, Chen said, her tone formal. I am Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. My fleet is currently in orbit of your outer planets. My weapons are trained on your homeworld. Your defenses are insufficient to stop us if we choose to attack. Draxon forced himself to remain calm. You have made your point, Admiral. You have demonstrated your power. What are your terms? Complete and immediate disarmament, Chen stated flatly. All Krell military vessels will power down their weapons and submit to inspection. All weapons production facilities will cease operations. All conquered territories will be granted immediate independence. And the Krell government will pay reparations to the species you have oppressed. That is not negotiation, Draxon protested. That is unconditional surrender. Yes, Chen agreed, it is. You came to Earth offering us the same terms, surrender or be destroyed. Now I offer you the same choice. The difference is that I mean it. I have 500 ships here. I have another 1,500 at Earth. I can bring them all here and turn Krell Prime into a dead world. Your species will be exterminated. Is that what you want? Draxon felt the weight of his species' survival on his shoulders. Pride demanded he refuse. Honor demanded he fight to the end. But wisdom, the wisdom that came from watching his empire crumble, told him that sometimes survival was more important than pride. If we surrender, he asked quietly, what happens to my people? Will you enslave us? Will you occupy our worlds? Chen's expression softened slightly. We are not conquerors, Supreme Archon. We do not want your worlds or your people. We want only to ensure you can never threaten Earth or any other species again. Yes, there will be occupation forces to oversee your disarmament. Yes, there will be reparations. But your people will remain free. Your government will remain in place, though under supervision, and once we are satisfied that the Krell Dominion no longer poses a threat, we will leave. How long will this occupation last? That depends on you. If you cooperate fully, perhaps 10 years. If you resist, longer. But understand this, the galaxy is watching. Every species you once conquered, every empire that once feared you, they are all watching to see what happens. If we are lenient and you betray that leniency, there will be no mercy. Not from us and not from the dozens of species who suffered under your rule. Draxon looked around his council chamber. He saw the faces of his advisors. Some were angry, urging him to fight. Others were resigned, accepting the inevitable. He thought about his species, about the billions of Krell on their homeworld and the colonies. He thought about the warriors who had already died in this pointless war. And he made his decision. I accept your terms, he said. The Krell Dominion surrenders unconditionally. Chen nodded. A wise choice, Supreme Archon. You will immediately order all Krell military forces to stand down and disarm. My fleet will enter orbit around Krell Prime. Occupation forces will land on your planet to oversee the transition. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. There will be no resistance, Draxon promised. He turned to his military commanders. Send the order. All Krell forces are to cease military operations immediately and comply with human instructions. Over the next 72 hours, the surrender was completed. Krell warships powered down their weapons and allowed human boarding parties to inspect them. Weapons facilities shut down. The conquered territories were officially granted independence, with human forces supporting the transitional governments. The Krell Empire, which had dominated this region of space for 3 centuries, was dismantled in less than a week. Admiral Chen established her headquarters on Krell Prime's primary moon. From there, she coordinated the occupation and oversaw the disarmament process. It was tedious work, ensuring that every weapon was accounted for, every ship was decommissioned, every military installation was shut down. But Chen also made sure to broadcast everything to the galaxy. She wanted every species to see what was happening. She wanted them to understand that the Krell, the great conquerors, had been defeated. She wanted them to know that humanity was now a major power in the galaxy. The response was immediate and dramatic. Species that had feared the Krell for generations celebrated. Some requested human assistance in securing their own independence. Others reached out to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. The galactic political landscape was shifting, and humanity was at the center of it. But not everyone was happy. The Vrax Collective, another large empire, watched humanity's rise with concern. They had been rivals with the Krell for decades. Now the Krell were defeated, and humanity had taken their place as the dominant military power in the region. The Vrax began their own mobilization, preparing their fleets just in case. Chen received reports about the Vrax movements with interest. They are worried, she observed to Rodriguez. They see what we did to the Krell and they wonder if we will come for them next. Will we? Rodriguez asked. Only if they threaten us first, Chen replied. We did not want this war with the Krell. We only wanted to be left alone. But now that we have won, we must accept the responsibilities that come with power. We must maintain the peace we fought for. She looked out at Krell Prime below, a beautiful world of purple oceans and green continents. The Krell made a mistake. They saw Earth as weak and thought they could take us easily. They learned too late that appearance and reality are not the same. We will make sure the galaxy does not forget that lesson. 3 months after the surrender, Admiral Chen held a final meeting with Supreme Archon Draxon. They met in what had been the Krell High Council chamber. now occupied by human personnel overseeing the transition. The disarmament is proceeding on schedule, Chen reported. Your military has been cooperative. The former conquered territories are establishing stable governments with our assistance. In 10 years, as promised, we will withdraw our occupation forces. Draxon nodded wearily. He looked older than when Chen had first met him, the stress of surrender and occupation taking its toll. My people hate this. They hate the occupation. They hate the restrictions. They hate seeing human ships in our skies. I understand, Chen said. No proud species enjoys defeat, but they are alive. Their world is intact. Their culture continues. That is more than they would have had if this war had continued. Do you truly believe humanity is different from us? Draxon asked. We conquered because we could. Because it brought us resources and power. Now you have defeated us and you occupy our worlds. How is that different? Chen considered the question carefully. The difference is in intent and duration. We do not want to rule your people. We do not seek to exploit your resources for our benefit. We are here only to ensure you cannot threaten others again. Once that is achieved, we will leave. Can you honestly say the Krell would have done the same? Draxon was silent for a moment. No, he finally admitted. We would have ruled Earth forever. We would have enslaved your species. That was always our way. Then you understand why we must do this. Not as punishment, but as prevention. The galaxy cannot afford empires built on conquest and slavery. The strong cannot be allowed to prey on the weak. Someone must enforce that rule. And you have appointed yourselves as that enforcer? Not by choice, Chen replied. We were content to hide behind our peaceful facade. We did not want this responsibility. But the Krell forced our hand. Now we must accept the consequences of our victory. We must help build a galaxy where species like yours cannot terrorize others. And if humanity becomes what the Krell were, Draxon challenged, if your power corrupts you as it corrupted us? Chen smiled sadly. Then I hope there will be another species strong enough to stop us. Power must be balanced. Authority must be checked. That is why we are working with the formerly conquered species to establish a Council of Free Worlds, a forum where disputes can be resolved without war, where the strong and weak can meet as equals. She stood to leave. History will judge whether we succeeded or failed, Supreme Archon. I can only do my best to ensure we use our power wisely. I hope your people can do the same once this occupation ends. As Chen left the council chamber, she thought about the future. The war with the Krell was over, but new challenges were emerging. The Vrax Collective was mobilizing. Other empires were reassessing their positions. Humanity had entered the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible, and now they had to navigate the complex politics of interstellar relations. But for now, the immediate threat was over. Earth was safe. The Krell were no longer a danger, and humanity had proven that they could defend themselves against any threat. The peaceful species that had broadcast friendship to the stars was gone, replaced by a military power that the galaxy both respected and feared. It was not the future humanity had wanted, but it was the future they had earned through blood and sacrifice. Admiral Sarah Chen looked out at the stars and wondered what challenges they would bring next. But whatever came, she knew humanity would face it with the same determination that had defeated the Krell Dominion. They had been underestimated once. No one would make that mistake again.